Hey, welcome. Today, we're diving into a spiritual text that's nearly 200 years old, and it tackles a massive paradox. How can God have a physical form but also be everywhere at once? And what's really surprising is that the answer might just be hidden in understanding a mystical state called samādhi. Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Our source material really paints a picture for us. We're transported back to late January 1826 in a temple courtyard in Vartal, India. You can almost feel it. The atmosphere is calm, it's focused, and it's about to be the stage for a really profound explanation.
So, at the very center of this scene is the spiritual master Bhagwan Swaminarayan. And this isn't just a lecture. He's surrounded by monks and followers who are right there with him, asking questions, engaging. This is a living, breathing conversation. And it's about to get really, really interesting.
And the whole thing kicks off, not with some abstract philosophy, but with a super practical question about this deep mystical state. A devotee wants to understand something called samādhi, the state of total spiritual absorption. And he basically asks, how does this actually work?
The person who asks is a devotee named Bhagubai Paridar, and you can tell he's not looking for a vague, flowery answer. He wants to know the mechanics of it. How does this actually occur? It's this direct, almost technical question that really sets the stage for the first big reveal.
So what is samādhi anyway? Well, the text describes it as a state of absolute spiritual focus. Just imagine your mind and all your senses, which, let's be honest, are usually pulled in a million different directions, suddenly pulling back from the outside world and focusing like a laser on one single point: God.
And the answer that's given is, well, it's completely unexpected. It's got nothing to do with complicated breathing exercises or meditating alone for years. Instead, the text says the key is hidden within the very nature of God's physical form.
So the discourse explains that when God appears on earth as an avatar, his form might look human, but it's fundamentally different. It has this unseen divine power, almost like a kind of spiritual gravity, that has this incredibly powerful effect on anyone who sees it with faith.
Now that sounds pretty abstract, right? So to make this idea really land, the text gives us this brilliant analogy: a magnetic rock. You look at it, and it seems just like any other stone you'd find on the ground, but it's hiding this incredible, invisible power.
Let's really break that down. You've got an ordinary rock, and you've got a magnetic rock. To the naked eye, they look identical. But if a ship sails by, the ordinary rock does nothing. The magnetic rock, on the other hand, has the power to literally pull every single iron nail right out of the ship. Same look, totally different power.
And this is how it all connects so beautifully. A devotee does darshan, they're viewing God's form, with real, sincere faith. And just like that magnet pulls the iron nails, the divine form powerfully pulls the devotee's senses inward, drawing them away from all the noise of the world. That intense spiritual attraction is what triggers the state of samādhi, just like that.
Okay, so that seems to answer the first question pretty well. But just as one mystery gets solved, a senior monk, Muktananand Swami, steps in with an even bigger, more complicated paradox, a classic puzzle that seems to fly in the face of everything we've just heard.
He starts with something that's a widely accepted spiritual idea. God, who he calls Brahma here, is pervasive, right? Omnipresent. He's everywhere, in everything, all at once. For a lot of traditions, this is like square one. And here it is. Here's the paradox. If God has a physical form, a form that's sitting right there under that tree, how can that same being also be everywhere? I mean, a physical body is, by its very nature, in one place. Being pervasive means being everywhere. You see the problem? It feels like a total contradiction.
The answer to this puzzle means we have to completely reframe what the word pervasive actually means when we're talking about God. It's not about being physically spread out like butter on toast. It's about something else entirely.
The answer comes, and honestly, it's a bit of a bombshell. The text claims that God actually resides in only one place. This just completely flips the common understanding of pervasiveness on its head. So, how could that possibly be true?
The way out of the paradox isn't to say God is formless, like the air. No, the solution is that God's pervasiveness is a function of his infinite power. From one single spot, God can see everything, hear everything, and even appear anywhere at any time. So pervasiveness isn't about physical location, it's an attribute of his power.
To help us wrap our heads around this, the text gives us a few more really cool analogies. Think about a yogi who can hear a voice millions of miles away like it's right in his ear. Or imagine someone who's given the vision of the sun and can see everything its light touches. The point is, if we can even conceive of these powers for mortals, why is it so hard to imagine God having them on an infinite level?
So now we can finally bring these two big ideas together. The text solves this huge contradiction by just redefining one of the key words. God can have a form and be pervasive, because pervasive means something totally different than what we first thought.
So let's lay it out, side by side. The common misconception is that for God to be pervasive, he has to be formless, spread out everywhere like the sky. But the reality this text is presenting is that God actually has a form in one place, and we call him pervasive because his infinite power lets his consciousness reach everywhere from that one spot.
And that's the big takeaway right there. The text is arguing that true divine pervasiveness isn't about being physically everywhere. It's an expression of infinite ability, of infinite consciousness and power, all coming from a single divine form.
The discourse just lands on this powerful final statement, leaving no room for doubt. The whole idea of a formless God is set aside for a God who eternally has a form, and it's his power, not his substance, that fills the universe.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating thought to chew on. This ancient text reframes a huge concept, saying true power is about focused reach, not being spread thin. So the question for us is, what other ideas in our own lives are we misinterpreting? What else do we mistake as one thing when maybe, just maybe, it's something far more powerful?